We are live. This is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. What do you need to know? What do you need to know? Entry points and a supply shock coming in Bitcoin. A big supply shock. You can't believe it. 8 days ago, it was winter. Now, every corporation from here to Kalamazoo is going to buy Bitcoin. And they may have to buy Bitcoin at the market, because I don't know who the seller is. Is it a government? Is it China? Like, where are they going to get the supply from? And then what happens when retail follows? In other words, if Bitcoin quickly jumps over 100, and that could take days, or it could take a month. But the question is, are you ready? Crypto equities, major bottom. Altcoins, hey, they're giving you a dip today. We're getting to the point where you're actually happy about dips. And when you see this news about, one, the Bitcoin supply shock that's coming, two, the administration that's looking for an off-ramp from this whole tariff conversation, right? So they can completely change the subject, which includes Elon's exit, right? They want to exit from everything that they've done quickly, I think. Now, whatever it is they're doing, they go, well, it's fine. And then they get on the tape and go, it's not fine. It's fine. It's not fine. The more times they do that, the more they're going to have to print. Now, if you want to find out the details and see the charts, please stick around. Okay, Zepeda's Taz Pinball, SGSG. Welcome, the OG. Crypto Scam, Tooth, Malik, Metal Synthetic in new name, welcome. Miguel, Tyler, eCrypt, Lee, DH, Gorin. What's going on? Yeah, dude, Tau, long term, I'm fine with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the fart coin whales are unloading on people at $1 billion. We really need to start asking ourselves, is that the only AI trade? And the answer is, of course not. Of course not. Right. There is so much more to crypto. And I think, frankly, we'll go through the Bitcoin news, but the Bitcoin news is telling you that I'm calling it a digital asset technology rally. In other words, the tech part of crypto could move just like the meme part of crypto, where people go, you know what? This is the best place for tech investing. Yo from Croatia. And I wanted to give a shout out to anybody in Canada, right? Our Canadian friends wanted a shout out yesterday, and we are too happy to oblige. News, let's go. Okay, BlackRock, $1 billion a day. 2.3 billion poured in every 4 days, right? Biggest streak. Now what they don't tell you is every other brokerage firm had outflows from the Bitcoin ETF during the selling climax, right? Just people just leaving, giving up, packing it in. Now everyone is flooding into BlackRock. Now, who's everyone? Is that me and you? No. These ETFs are really owned by traders. They're not owned by the big institutions yet. And as I've said over and over and over again, when these characters start coming in after Bitcoin, they're not going to be price sensitive. Like, ask yourself this question. If you believe gold was going to $5,000 an ounce or $10,000 an ounce, would you care if you paid $1,600, $2,000, $3,000, $3,500? Like, do any of those price points make you go, oh, I can't buy that. I can't pay that. That's crazy. Of course not. You're watching in gold when people are just, this is the old futures exchange symbol, right? At the market. Just buy it. That's coming. And I don't think people understand what kind of impact that's going to have on the tech portion of crypto. Finance, tech, AI, Bitcoin, money, Coinbase coins. Anyone out there thinking about what happens when the normies come back to Coinbase? Anybody looking on Coinbase to see what's out there? It's unbelievable. Okay, billion in inflows for Larry. Second straight day, institutional demand is escalating. I don't think institutional demand has even showed up yet, because if it was, Bitcoin would be over 100. I think everyone's standing around looking at themselves, looking at each other, going, what do we do? That's the point where I think we're at. In other words, yes, corporations, yeah, they're doing their thing, but they're on the drawing board, and guys like Michael Saylor and GameStop and MetaPlanet, they're like, oh my God, we got to get in now, because there's going to be a point where it's going to be very hard to buy tons of Bitcoin without moving it 10%. Right. SoftBank goes to Mar-a-Lago, I think, and buys 900 million in Bitcoin. They got to change the subject. They're already changing the subject, right? See, here we are at Mar-a-Lago here with Howard, who, the more he learns about how the sausage gets made out there, the more Bitcoin he wants to buy. I saw that stock. His stock went up 55% on the Bitcoin announcement. Who knew? But again, he's taking a look at what goes on in government, and it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm out. Sovereign wealth funds, large institutions, large pools of capital have been buying Bitcoin since April, according to Coinbase. Fascinating that they were telling you that it was crypto winter. And it's interesting because you know why they were telling you it was crypto winter? So they could just get everybody's crypto. It's just another tactic, right? Because Coinbase is out today. They're all over the news. There's CNBC, articles, Armstrong videos are out there going, yeah, everyone's looking to buy. Everyone's looking to buy, and you read our article about crypto winter and sold. Oldest trick in the book, right? All information that comes out on the tape is not always in your interest, really. Okay, so here we have Michael Saylor and the GameStop guy. I was critical of the GameStop guy. I thought it was crazy, and he sold a whole bunch of stock right before stocks collapsed. It looks like a genius. And I keep dreaming about the day, I swear, I keep dreaming about the day where there's a Bitcoin-based retailer. Like, can you imagine where you could go somewhere, buy stuff with Bitcoin, theoretically, or more importantly, in the course of your normal daily activity, walk into a Bitcoin advice booth. Like, you ever see how they have the Jackson Hewitt tax booths inside, say, Walmart, or they have banks inside these big retailers? Can you imagine if you could walk in to like a Bitcoin-based bank inside of retailers, like brick and mortar Bitcoin? It's coming. It's coming, right? Because it's going to become this accepted form of money, and this GameStop guy could do it. Like, everyone's like, oh, yeah, Bitcoin is boring. Is it? Is it boring? I don't think so. It may be boring when you're looking for 1000x, but if you think about how this could ignite the whole ecosystem, this could create 10x's everywhere in a short amount of time. Bitcoin is the tide, the rising tide that lifts all boats. If there's no downtick in Bitcoin, there's no downtick in this market from here on out. Okay, so the SEC meets with El Salvador. Again, this is what I call headline manufacturing. Change the subject, right? Change the subject. Orange Man needs to have a stunt with his meme coin trying to change the subject away from this tariff thing, which clearly did not go the way they wanted it to. It didn't. Now, Saylor, if I'm lucky enough to get 10% of the supply, Bitcoin's going to be at $50 million a coin. Can't stop, won't stop. Okay. Now, let's talk about this. So me and my partner were working on like a cyberpunk action novel, right? And and the use of AI systems to help with the book, is obvious, right? Because I'm not Ernest Hemingway, right? She is, but I'm not. So the point is, the deeper you get involved in AI, The deeper you get in cyber, or like Mike, where you're in software and you understand how hard it is to generate a Bitcoin, right? And how rare and scarce it is, and how machines will use Bitcoin. And if there's a problem with the global fiat system, which is inevitable, there's nothing better than Bitcoin, especially since it's like hardcore decentralized. And Mike knows this. So the $1 million targets, the $13 million targets, the $50 million targets, they don't mean anything to anybody because he says it all the time. But what he's not telling you is like the societal global importance of using something like Bitcoin. And that if everyone goes to use it at once, you will be laughing that you didn't want it at 82, 83, 84, 85, 90, 92. You know, they sold it, they crashed it to 77 and no one wanted it. It'll be a joke. It'll be a joke because eventually Bitcoin is going to get owned by corporations, and then it's going to spread out and be a currency used at Wall Street. You know, just like, I don't know, a company in Latin America can issue US dollar denominated bonds, right? They don't issue it in their own currency. They issue debt in dollars. Why can't people issue debt in Bitcoin or pay interest in Bitcoin? This is happening. Japanese, I like how they call this. Japanese MicroStrategy bought 13 million. Okay. They now hold 5,000 Bitcoin at an average price of 89. And they were making fun of this group for buying a bunch at 100. They bought what whales were selling. These guys are going to buy wherever they can get liquidity because they know one day they're not going to be able to get liquidity. One day, everyone's going to sit around and go, okay, however much Bitcoin I have, yeah, that's how much crypto, that's how much Bitcoin I have. Unless I want to market buy it or try to wait for a crash. But the thing is, you know, the next crash may be from, I don't know, you know, 150 to 120 or 250 to 150, something like that. Okay, so Coinbase, again, all over the tape, trying to reverse course on this research. Where I mean, he was head of the institutional research, so I have a hard time figuring out why you would do that on purpose. But someone used it, they got all their crypto, and now they're trying to reverse course aggressively. I've been an analyst. I've bought the high. I've sold the low. You know, I've just learned that, you know, from my years at Goldman, don't be negative when it's down. There's nothing worse than the late stage bear. Nothing. Better off saying, you know what, say nothing, or say, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to get negative. Now, the Swiss National Bank, or the Swiss Fed, which is a stocks hedge fund, by the way. Literally, it's a hedge fund. It's a U.S. equities hedge fund. You can look it up. I mean, the assets on their balance sheet are U.S. stocks. And according to the recent update, the Swiss firm has significantly increased MicroStrategy holdings. The parallel rise in value and share count suggests the bank has been actively buying more shares as the price has gone up. Now, as we discuss over and over again, and I have no problem continuing to discuss it, why is that happening? They are looking at MicroStrategy as a tech stock, right? It's a tech stock, and everybody makes fun of that because, oh yeah, their little software business is so dinky it doesn't exist relative to Bitcoin. But the fact of the matter is, Bitcoin is a network. You cannot type in code in ChatGPT. You cannot replicate the software code of Bitcoin. Or, you know, you could do this on TikTok. You could just go on TikTok, or you could go on ChatGPT, say, write me all the code for TikTok and make me some music, and boom, there you go. You can't do that with Bitcoin. And plus, their position is so big, no one's ever going to be able to get a position as big. No one, not even the governments, without driving it to $1 million. So he's got software you can't replicate. And, you know, he's got a moat around the business, which a lot of guys have talked about. A lot of guys have talked about this. But a lot of hedge funds are shorted. But characters like this are going, well, I don't know if we can buy Bitcoin, and I don't know if we can buy the Bitcoin ETF, but we can definitely buy this. And this is not the only character. Swiss National Bank, hedge funds, you know, mutual funds, pension funds. They're going to look at his stock and go, his stock is priced for Bitcoin at 250K. And you know what? It's going to 700. So I'm buying the stock. And when that stock takes off, the whole market's going to take off. Like, seriously, the stock could lead crypto. Crazy, right? Watch. Texas, hours away from holding a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I live in Texas. Anytime we like to get our act together and get involved is okay with me. Some of our senators are not very nice people. You know, one guy is a deep state tool, if I may say so. And the other guy is, you know, I don't know, interesting, but unlikable. And he's the one who is out front. Like Ted Cruz is the guy. He's just out front. Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Because again, everyone left China and came over here to do their Bitcoin mining. So it's like, oh, you know, it's like, how are we not buying it? How are we not helping our miners, right? By creating a bid. Okay, so Bloomberg says price stability could prompt the adoption in corporate treasuries. More public firms might rethink. Because at 80, it's, I don't know. But at 105, it'll be much more attractive. Right? As U.S. exceptionalism dims, better resilience could aid corporate treasury use. So the day that Bitcoin decoupled from stocks, where stocks crashed and Bitcoin went up, that was the shot heard around the world. And these publicly traded companies have to own it now. They have to own it. In other words, if Bitcoin blows through 100 and they sat around and didn't do anything when it was at 80 or 90, they're fired. Right? This is a thing, right? By the end of this year, or even by the Bitcoin conference in May, I mean, by the time the next round of corporate earnings are released in July, what are CFOs going to tell people if they have not put some of their treasury money in Bitcoin? What is their excuse? There isn't any, which is why, you know, you could have a serious supply shock, right? You know, this guy says, you know, anybody who says Bitcoin can't go much higher, that there's been no cycle, the cycle has, you know, diminishing returns. This is actually a great point. You know, how much of this crap, frankly, were you listening to a week ago, a month ago? The cycle's over. There is no cycle. There's no halving rally. It's just endless, right? People, it took reality and reinvented it around the price action. It's like, okay, this is the future based on what's happening now. I can't deal with what's happening now, by the way, which I don't blame you. We discussed this, right? It was so horrible. People were like, oh my God, you know, I can't deal with this. So I have to like rearrange what the world's going to look. Oh yeah, there's no cycle. It's over, right? I can't take it, which again, I understand, but it's like, okay, let's start recreating a narrative. No, that's all wrong. This cycle, this is the cycle. You haven't been around. You don't know how, you don't use charts. Okay, great. Here's this cycle all the way up, all the way down. That was 23 and 24, 6 months of torture. And then off the election, all the way up. And then guess what? All the way down. It's called a series of ones and twos in Elliott wave, right? Start, stop, start, stop. And when you get done, if you have enough start stops, when it goes, it's just impulsive. It just goes. AKA the banana zone, AKA alt season. You call it whatever you want. This market's actually giving you an opportunity to get long with the orange man going back and forth on this tariff thing every day. Market watch. Has Bitcoin having lost its mojo? The crypto sees its worst ever post-halving performance. Dated April 23rd. You want to take a look at a statistic? Me and the Eagle King looked at some numbers. So the last time Bitcoin was at like 90 something was back at Thanksgiving. And where YouTube views and interest was when Bitcoin was 90 something back then was off the charts. Now, admittedly, you had a huge XRP rally driving those views to a certain degree. No one is interested. Like, seriously, everyone just got done leaving. Like we heard that click-clack on the door behind the last person leaving before this thing just turned around and went back up again. Meaning, corporations have to market buy this stuff. And then by the time the general public sees the supply shock price action, they're going to be running back in at 110, and they're not going to care what price they pay. And they may not care what price they pay for altcoins, which could include Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum, definitely Solana. For sure, Solana. Should have brought this up earlier. I mean, who in God's name, who's coming in from Coinbase, is going to look at Solana at $200, $300, $400 versus $150,000 Bitcoin or $3,000 ETH and go, whoa, wow, Solana, that's really cool. It's like $300. I'll get some of that. It's going to happen. It could happen quickly, very quickly, right? In other words, everybody, all these corporations and hedge funds are trying to figure out, they have month-to-month, quarter-by-quarter performance. Right now, they're all sitting in a war room figuring out what they're going to do for the end of this month going into next month. They're in a war room, and so are we as of now. Turning point in institutional investor sentiment around MicroStrategy. Huh? Imagine that. Imagine these guys like going, yeah, I think we need to redo the spreadsheets on these guys. I mean, we need to get rid of the old spreadsheet and get the new spreadsheet where we figure out how to, value tech companies that have something special, like Apple back in the day, right? They had a phone. It was easy to use. Everyone wanted it. No one could replicate it. Boom. $3 trillion. Bitcoin is worth $3 trillion at least, right? The most meaningful validation to date of MicroStrategy's Bitcoin strategy leaves us incrementally more bullish, says TD Ameritrade. Hello. These guys were all giga short. This, miners, oh my God, their revenue's falling out of bed. Sailor's a lunatic. He's hyper leveraged. He's a madman. He's going to get liquidated. That's another sign of a bottom. We had some of that nonsense. Sailor's going to get liquidated. Oh my God, we're 15% away from his average price. Oh my God. Yeah, okay. Do you know how many normies are reading this research? A lot. These are the states where Americans have the most cash in the bank. Well, I'm glad to know that somebody has cash in the bank. Nobody has cash in the bank in Mississippi. Those poor people and a lot of these other Americans, man, they need help. They need help. They need tax relief. They need one-off stimulus checks to help them get out of the credit card debt. And then they got to be encouraged to get on Coinbase with whatever money they have and buy Bitcoin. This is a lot of cash people are sitting around on. Not to mention they're all 50% in equities, and they just took a 30 or 40% haircut on that. So they're probably recomputing what they want to do with their life. Okay. So the big short and the big long, right? So the Dow to gold ratio. So this is implying Dow should fall and gold should rally. The end of a monetary era is always the same. Bubble assets go up in smoke. To paraphrase Churchill, the more you study history, the more self-evident the future becomes. Okay? Now, this is absolutely fascinating, but it doesn't say anything about Bitcoin, of course, because it's written by a gold newsletter, so I get it. The simple fact of the matter is, when you usher out the old order, you bring in the new, right? Gold is probably going higher because it's a central bank reserve asset, but it's also a commodity, and it's also owned by the Chinese, which we'll go into. And they make this big deal about how gold goes up every day on the Chinese Open of the Shanghai Metals Exchange, but the Chinese government needs dollars, and they may have to sell gold to get them. They may have to. If they want to sell their Bitcoin, we have every corporation, every sales trading desk, and every government and every state over here willing to take it. So I understand the whole gold trade is important for Bitcoin, but you also have to understand that the gold trade and the apocalypse, right, that they tried to sell you around the gold trade was absolutely false. They tried to sell you the end of the world. What they should have been selling you was the beginning of the new world. Okay, so if you ever wanted evidence of my theory that they are desperate to change the subject, the Orange Man's meme coin is back, right? So, we'll have a dinner for 200 people for the top 200 holders. So he's trying to get people to pour in, right? So the New York Times can have outrage. Elizabeth Warren can freak out, and there'll be something else on the news, right? Orange Man, some of the policies may not make sense, but he's always looking to keep everybody off balance. And again, the Orange Man sold the top, and he may have just bought the bottom. He may have just bought the bottom by saying, hey, you need to take a look at this. He's right. Okay. Again, this is probably from a later video, but it's amazing how they're digging up all the video, right? Coinbase, bullish. Okay. Yep. Crypto coin buyers offered VIP tour of the White House. I don't think people understand what this really means, right? They're announcing a discussion pivot. A discussion pivot. Because when these guys were on the tape the first time, the market was it was a rocket ship. People were insane. Okay, yeah, now people are probably more wrecked than broke, but we just saw a graphic that people have got cash sitting in the bank. And, we don't know about economic uncertainty. We don't know about their job. They don't know about anything. I mean, all I can do when I experience uncertainty is, I swear to God, all I say to myself is, how can I get more Bitcoin? Like, there are tech plays, it's like, I want to get into alts. I want to get some of this stuff. But it's like, when I get upset, when I get worried, because the other 23 and a half hours of the day when I'm not on the air, I sit around and go, oh my God, what the hell's going on in this world? All I want to do is buy more Bitcoin. And then I do this AI cyberpunk thing. And I'm like, oh my God, 80, 90, it's a joke. It's like back in the day when I worked for Charlie Shrem. He used to say, if you can get Bitcoin below 10K, you'll be set for life. And back then it was so bearish. We were afraid when it was at 3K or 4K, we were afraid to say, I wasn't, but they were afraid to say it's going to 13K. That's how bearish it was at the time. So the guy who thought your life could change if you got it below 10K was too bearish or too worried to say it was going to 13K. That's how bad the down moves are. The down moves scar your mind. Do not let that happen. Get some sleep. We'll see you in the morning, says the GameStop guy. Boy, I tell you what, these guys buy Bitcoin and they create a squeeze in GameStop. Holy cow. They can issue all the stock they want. There's somebody out there short this stock. It's a whole long story. You got to watch out for these corporations buying Bitcoin. Because if this guy in the hoodie from GameStop is doing it, he could create a chain reaction to where Apple or other companies have to get involved. And remember, supposedly the Solana phone comes out in April. Cardano founder, I don't think Ethereum will survive more than 10 years. When you have this kind of FUD, you just have to go the other way. You have to, right? Because again, is Wall Street going to come and run everything on Cardano? Cardano may be a great network. It may be a great project. This guy may be a great technological innovator, but is that Cardano network tested? Has anyone tested how much that network can take? Can Solana price rise to 500? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I spend a lot of time talking about how absurd the ETH chart is, but you got to remember about this coin that, if this becomes like the stable coin hub, and we'll go into that, because there's some like insidious, I think it's insidious stable coin stuff going on. It's going to run on Solana. So stable coins could almost exclusively run on Solana. You got to think about that. That's huge. Okay, 15 crypto firms trying to get banking licenses. Why? Because they want the dollar backed. They want the dollar proliferated using stable coins. Stablecoin companies will buy treasuries. It's an organic bid for our debt. And I'm actually shocked at how right I am about this, because check this out. Coinbase is trying to stop the stablecoin law. And you're like, what? Okay. Are you kidding me? Now, what people are saying is that they're going to pass the stablecoin bill. Okay. They're trying to stop it because the company is being aided by a law firm, right? The issue has nothing to do with the contents of the stablecoin bill. So there's a stablecoin bill that says, hey, do stablecoins. And Coinbase is like, oh, that's great. But what they want, okay, they want to like basically have Congress give the green light to the industry, right? So there's something called market structure legislation, okay, where they essentially which could functionally legalize the rest of the industry. Now, follow me here. So they want to have stable coins. They want to have firms out there that have the digital dollar, that buy treasuries. They can also track you with stable coins. Don't kid yourself. You do not need a CBDC for Uncle Sugar to track you with, say, Circle. They don't. Stable coins, you got zero privacy, none. But obviously, if they print stable coins, the amount of money coming into the ecosystem is huge. You take treasury debt, leverage that, create stable coins. The stable coins are going to come in and buy Bitcoin, clearly. But Congress doesn't want to legalize the rest of the industry. In other words, Coinbase is like, wait a minute. Why are you doing a stable coin bill? Why don't you just do a crypto bill? Oops, sorry. Banking lobby. We'll do stable coins, but we're not doing the rest of crypto. We're not giving you the green light on the rest of the industry. And you know what I say to that? Good. Good. Frankly, the market did better when there was the rebellious cyberpunk spirit to fight Gensler. They're not going to legalize all this stuff because they're afraid of it. Yeah, and probably because Pump.Fun was out of control. That's probably part of it. But senators like, oh yeah, stable coins, let's sign on the dotted line. Absolutely. Yeah, it's because the banks probably want it. Right. Or the orange man wants it, or both. In other words, the stablecoin thing is easy. Giving crypto an industry-wide green light, yeah, they're afraid. They're afraid, and they should be, right? Because their behavior is horrible. Okay, so they're out there countering the XRP FUD, right? Big CEOs are out saying, XRP is the coin with the most utility. Banks are going to use it. Yesterday, we had a guy saying banks won't use it. They're going to use it. And then if they don't use it, it's still fast money. And you know what? They're going to figure it out because Ripple is not IPOing. They're not IPOing if they don't figure it out. So if they want to make money and they want to cash out and they want to get paid, they'll figure it out. That's it. Galaxy Digital had to do all kinds of stuff where, they turn their Bitcoin mining operation into like an AI data center so that they could come to investors and say, well, we do crypto, but we are also cyberpunk AI. And, we have a diversified portfolio of things we do inside the company. We're not just some gunslinging crypto hedge fund. Ripple's going to have to do the same thing. Now, maybe it won't be AI data centers, but I mean, okay, they got the $3 on hype and hope as XRP repriced itself for the USA crypto era, right? China opens, gold immediately spikes. Okay. So we sell it, they buy it. Stop all federal funding of universities. Can I ask, why are we spending $100 billion a year to give to schools? A lot of the schools have huge endowments. And what is that money being used for? To hire administrators? To hyperinflate the cost of school? What incentive do schools have to do a Doge? And just get rid of everybody who doesn't contribute directly to helping kids. Like the government waste, it knows no bounds. And the government waste also has an ideological bent, right? Okay, so forgot that one in the good section. Sovereign wealth funds buying MicroStrategy. Crypto Chicken, NVIDIA, all these companies that helped Trump get inaugurated, elected, whatever. Then he turned around and did exactly what he wanted to anyway. That's something that people are forgetting. Tariff thing could be right, wrong. The orange man said, thanks for contributing. We're going to do what we think is right, whether it is or it isn't. That is impressive. And remember, that could come to crypto. Okay. And again, bad actors continue to push back. Like whoever this reporter is, he's got, guys coming to his house. This is the guy that catches everybody on hidden video. He's got guys harassing his reporters at his house. Elon Musk reportedly wants to leave politics due to continued, quote, attacks by the left. Right. Okay. So, again, $400 to go vandalize a Tesla, and Elon's out. Doge is out. Now, hopefully they figure it out. Hopefully that's not true, but the market spoke on Tesla. And to be honest with you, if Elon is going to go back to government, they're going to have to buy a lot more Bitcoin. He's going to have to get on board with that. He bought $1 billion and he's like, okay, great. We have Bitcoin. That's nice. If he doesn't start accepting Bitcoin for Teslas, he can't go back to government. And if he doesn't go back to government, they won't cut spending. And if they don't cut spending, he's never going to Mars. So how about that? So Elon, if you're listening out there, you want to go to Mars, you better start buying Bitcoin or start accepting Bitcoin for Teslas. The sooner, the better. Get on board, change the conversation, or face the wrath of those who don't like you. So not only is he out, he's out, and the only way he's coming back in is through crypto. Okay, so today we have, yesterday everything was fine. Today it's not. China says no trade talks, canceling everything. It's not happening. China, no, any content about China-U.S. talks, groundless, no factual basis. Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, trying to change the conversation. Saying the IMF and the World Bank need to stop being ideological institutions and start actually helping people, countries, build and rebuild. Or we could just go to the Bitcoin standard and leave them in the dust because we don't need them, right? I mean, yeah, it would be nice if the World Bank and the IMF would actually help people. That'd be nice. A lot of things would be nice, right? Russian central bank in Bitcoin. Okay. Talk on Wall Street based on their sources inside the White House is that Trump team looking for a face-saving off-ramp from the trade talks. Okay. It's why you see the conflicting responses out of Bessent. There's an attempt to negotiate through the media, acting tough, but signaling the need for a deal. Okay. Calling the Chinese, whatever. They need out. They need out. And the only way out is to talk about Bitcoin. They got to change the subject and try to get some kind of a deal in a back room. It's too late for Ethereum. It's amazing. At 4,000, it was the flippening. The flippening that everyone was talking about was that ETH was going to flip Bitcoin because Bitcoin was a digital doorstop and ETH actually did something. And now at 1,400, ETH is now dead and can never come back. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. $12 billion surge in customs revenue. So the orange man, not saving any money, not paying off the $37 trillion in national debt with tariff money, not going to be able to lower income taxes or anything like that. But what's he going to do with this $12 billion in whatever, right? In other words, $100 billion is like, it doesn't matter when you look at the amount of money that they're spending, but they come up with, I don't know, $100 billion from tariffs. What are they going to do with it? Time to change the subject. U.S. companies declaring bankruptcies at the fastest pace in 15 years. Paging Jerome Powell. China in particular is in need of rebalancing. There's a problem with their currency, and that accelerates the Bitcoin standard. Going to charts. Okay, what are we looking for? A bottom. So we're now going from the big picture, which we discussed yesterday, and hopefully if I can get some computer cooperation here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, notice Ethereum on a 90-minute chart, right? So it's like, we're just looking for tactical bottoms. Up, 13 top stops. Down, 9 bottom pending. Like This is a dip. I know this is stupid, but it's like, oh, okay. When do I get a dip? You're getting a dip. This is the dip. This is what dips look like from now on because Bitcoin isn't going to move. And you can swing all coins around 15, 20%, like Arrow and some of this stuff is crazy. But like, Solana, 154, 146. I remember Solana was at 146, like when this whole mess started, right? Solana at 146 feels cheaper now than it ever has, right? Sui, wild price action. Wild. Like 9 top doesn't move. Doesn't move. Like, is something going on Sui that we don't know about? Like, is there a protocol, a game, a DeFi thing, or is it just good old fashioned FOMO? But like, this is like up and sit. This looks like Bitcoin. Like, what's going on over there? Something's going on. And again, with Bitcoin, you're probably resetting the range. Like I said, the range was like, this is probably the bottom end of the range at 92. And then you'll have like 92 to 98. That's a guess, right? Because corporations are going to figure out what to do. And when they get done figuring that out, it's going to go, 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 go. Okay. So I think you get the idea. If you get dips, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. Because you know what? You're only going to get so many dips before these guys come in at the end of the month. Okay. That's the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow.